Welcome to Problem Solve, the podcast where me and a special co-host solve all your problems really easily, probably.
Problems? Are you kidding me? I don't have any problems. Okay, I might have a few, but I can work on them with you. Come on.
Hello, Amelia.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you're not that far away from me. You're just up in Seattle.
I know, you're a stone's throw away.
Mm-hmm.
You're our quirkier cousin down there.
We are. Do you enjoy the ride from Seattle to Portland? Do you make it very often?
I haven't made it in a long time. There's a train now. I mean, actually now it's been like a very long time now. But
Trains have been trains for a long time. Yeah, they've been here for a while. Yeah, they've been doing their thing.
Have you heard of this thing called trains? Just learned about it. Mind blowing.
Uh-huh.
No, I didn't. I haven't taken the train down, but I used to drive a lot. When I was with my ex, actually, we would always go down to Portland. So it's been quite some time since I've been, but I love it. I've loved it every time I've been. Have you been to Seattle?
Oh, yeah, I do take the train up there.
And it's, flex.
It's nice getting on the train and not having to do the driving and just sitting back. The problem is that sometimes the trains get delayed, and that's a really upsetting thing to me. But I just, it's a good growing opportunity as well.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
Yeah.
Do some self-soothing. Find get mindfulness on a train.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be a good band name. Mindfulness on a train. Train mindfulness. I might steal that.
You're riffing. This is great. I was last up there in Seattle. I don't know, maybe a few months ago. I went to go see a Seattle Mariners game play my Chicago Cubbies, and that was very exciting.
Did the Mariners lose?
Yes, the bad guys lost, and the good guys won.
Okay. I'm going to need therapy after this therapy podcast, I'm thinking. No, we are, notoriously losers, but we had a good year. What was it, 2 years ago? So I'm starting to feel myself getting cockier about Seattle sports.
Yeah, good for you. We're here, though, to talk about, we're going to have some callers call in. You and I are going to talk about what we think they should do to try to solve their problems. But before we do that, can you introduce yourself to everybody so everyone can know who you are and where to find you?
Yeah, I'm Amelia Samson. I'm up in Seattle. That's about it. No, I'm a TikTok creator that focuses mostly on dating content that spans from everything from dating apps to now recently animals. Mating rituals is a new thing I accidentally tripped and fell into. But yeah, you can find me at Amelia Samson on every platform. And I also have my own podcast called The Holy Hour. And I co-host it with one of my best friends, Liz. It is a sex, dating, and mental health podcast by people that just go to therapy. We're not therapists.
Yeah, you wanted to make that clear. Even when we were emailing before this, you were like, this isn't going to be expert advice. And I was like, yeah, I'll do the expert advice bullshit. Right. You do everything else. Yes.
I'm the mess involved in the conversation.
Yes, we love to see it. Wait, but back up. You do now animal mating videos on TikTok? I don't think I've run across that format of yours yet.
How you just phrase that makes it sound like I'm doing animal porn. It
does sound like my
profile. So what it is I stumbled across this story about how male pufferfish will create these very elaborate nests to attract mates, and I thought it was the cutest thing in the world. They're geometrically super complex. And so I posted a video talking about it and contrasted that with how men talk on dating apps, human men. And it did well. And so now I make mating ritual videos. You gotta follow the money,
You do, yeah. No, I get it. When something starts trending, you ride that trend all the way until the end. I've been there. I've done it.
You'd think I would have learned from, starting the dating app stuff, because I do not love that brand. It is sucking the soul directly out of me, seeing how people talk. But again,
Mhm.
people want to see it. There's a lot of curiosity around dating, so I'm happy to do it.
Interesting. Have you expanded outside of pufferfish, or are you really like niching down and only focusing
Yeah,
on that?
you might know me as the pufferfish mating ritual creator on TikTok. No, I also have talked about bowerbirds. Have you heard of these birds?
No.
They create these like very elaborate, they're bowers, like they're like nests. I guess they're bigger than nests, but they like decorate them with like flowers and beetle wings for like to like create reflections. And then like the female will fly by and like check out the bower, and she'll be
Hmm.
like, no, and fly on to the next one if she doesn't like it. And I think it's so cute. They'll also, if the female likes the bower, then the male will do like a little dance. And
Mm.
then I don't know. You have to look into this, because I feel like I could take up the whole hour of your podcast talking about how adorable this is. But yeah, no, I've expanded past pufferfish. The TLDR is I also talk about birds.
Riveting. But
It's pretty
also,
exciting.
like, I am going to go check out your content to learn more about this, because
Thank you.
I am extremely curious. But this is connected but not connected. But this is like a gross story. It reminds me. I went to college in Santa Barbara, and Santa Barbara. Everyone who goes to Santa Barbara City College and the university, UCSB, they all live in this 8 block by 8 block like radius called Isla Vista. And it is just the most disgusting place
Oh.
you've ever been. And the streets are they swarm at night with frat parties and just really like hectic, gross, problematic things. I mean, this was back in 1999 and 2000 is when I went to college. I'm a real old head, so maybe it's like improved since then. But some of like the grossest people that I know went to Santa Barbara just to live in this gross little community. And I think that like people who are listening to this that also lived in Isla Vista and went to Santa Barbara colleges, they don't have a problem with me calling it disgusting. Like
Right, of
they
course.
know how. But anyways, there's this one kid, and they were playing. He was like kind of a friend or a friend of a friend, and they were playing Century Club. Do you know what Century Club is? I think maybe that just like died in the 90s. But Century
No.
Club was where it was this game where you take 100 shots of beer, which kind of sounds like, oh, maybe I could do that. But it's extremely difficult to get through all 100 shots of beer.
That's very
So
filling.
it's very filling. You're very full. You got a full
Very
tummy.
drunk.
Very drunk. And most people do not get through the entire Century Club. But this one guy was determined to do it, and he drank all of the 100 shots. And that was like such a feat for him. He was so proud of himself. But he was wasted. And so the story is about to get like gross here. But everybody just sort of passed out. And then one of our friends woke up, and the guy who like completed the Century Club was still up, and he was on the couch. And you know how sometimes you drink and you get like a little horny, like you want to like do sex, but you know, it's 2:30 in the morning. There's nobody. And there's also like, this is 1999, so you can't like go on the internet to see porn. So he's just like flipping through the channels, and he found the Discovery Channel, and it was one of the like mating ritual Discovery Channels shows, and there was like these grasshoppers that were having sex together, and my friend walked in on him masturbating to that grasshopper. And I don't even know if I want to keep this in the podcast episode, but
Oh my God. Like,
but now then he was labeled as like the guy who masturbated to grasshoppers for the rest of college. He never lived that down.
that is the most absurd. Like, could you not like conjure up a memory like that? There are some steps before grasshopper porn. You know what I mean?
You'd think, right? You just
You would
sort of like
think.
stay, and also don't do it in the living room. But he just had 100 shots of beer, so maybe
I
that's
mean,
he was a little impaired.
you know, I have done some questionable things when I'm impaired, but none of them involve grasshopper porn. That is,
Also, you're not an 18-year-old boy.
I'm not. That's true. Perspective matters.
Yeah.
Perspective matters. I can't get into the mindset of an 18-year-old boy. I hope he's
can't.
doing well.
You know what? He's a comedian now, and I think he's doing medium well.
That tracks. That definitely
yeah.
that checks out.
I think that was his origin story. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I was gonna say, aren't like so many comedians have so much like, you know, the like personal trauma? I feel like that has to be at least like in the top 3 for him.
Yes.
Oh my God, I can't. Oh.
I don't even know. I don't know why I went there, and now we have to transition.
Listen, mating rituals of animals. I get it.
Right.
It. You know,
we're all animals.
Now I'm traumatized. Maybe I'll become a comedian just after hearing that story.
Exactly.
That's the power of the story.
We're gonna get into some questions now. Andrea, can you go ahead and play the first one for us?
Hi, Jeff. I think Problem Solved is terrific. And in particular, the episode that you did with the therapeutic answer to a question versus the fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway answer to the question really resonated with me. And here's my question. My 3-year on again, off again, extremely hot sex relationship ended about 6 months ago, and I already have a new potential partner, certainly a boyfriend, who is all the things that my ex was not. Vulnerable, accountable, authentic. The communication's great. The sex is still pretty great. But he's not my ex. And there's a pull that I feel to my ex, not only because of the ridiculous sex we were having, but also some of the, weirdly soulful connections we had. And while I don't think that my ex is remotely ready or might not even be ready to do the work to get past his own issues, his emotional immaturity, his avoidant behavior, I have to say that it's still infiltrating my new relationship, and I'm spending too much time thinking about my ex. So I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm not going to call him or text him or email him or send him a letter. I am definitely staying in my own lane. And I've certainly done other things like make a list of the not great parts of the relationship to take off the rose-colored glasses. But besides all that, and besides just doing nothing, what do you suggest I do to put out the final embers that are still, unfortunately, sparking in this fire?
I think we've all been here, haven't we?
Hell yeah. I was tale as old as time.
Right. Yeah. And it's so frustrating when you know better. She knows better. She knows that she's with somebody who's potentially a much better match here, yet she still can't stop thinking about this roller coastery, probably toxic, extremely sexy time that she had with her ex. And good for her for like making a list. That's usually step number 1 of like all the reasons that it wasn't a good fit. And it sounds like she's feeling really determined to not contact this person. Also, probably a really good idea, but I get it. She's looking for some more suggestions. But before I kind of like try to think of some more suggestions for her, off the top of your head, if you've ever been in this situation before, what do you typically do in order to like move on?
Have I ever been in this situation before? What's interesting is I realized as I was dating that, and it sounds like there could be some of this going on. Obviously, we only have this like 2-minute clip, so we don't have all of the context, but like something that I noticed I was doing was when I would date someone that was missing just like 10% of something, the next person that I dated would have that 10% and then nothing else. And so it was like I was jumping from, I'll give you an example. I was dating this very great, he was like a golden retriever kind of guy, and he had zero swag. Like he was so uncool and unconfident, but it was kind of endearing to a point. The next dude that I dated was only confident and had like none of the substance to like support the confidence. That sounds mean, but he wasn't not a nice person. But I feel like we do this thing when we jump from relationship then into another relationship, is try to fill in the gap that the last person left behind, but the new person doesn't have all of the things that you know, we also need on top of that the last person may have had. So I feel like in the past when I've done this, I always say everything is a lesson or a blessing. Like you learn something or you get something from every situation. I do believe, and this is so much easier to say from where I'm sitting, there will be somebody that has everything that you're looking for and maybe other things that you didn't even know that you wanted that will, you know, you'll always look back on like a positive relationship or a relationship that had positive aspects to it and be like, oh, what if, you know, like the unrequited kind of like incompleteness of a past relationship leaves you wanting more from it because you didn't get to see it all the way through. So there's always going to be that piece of you, not always, maybe not always, but for a long time, that piece of you that's just like, what if, like, and it leaves you longing, but there's going to be a relationship that checks so many boxes that you didn't even know that you had. And maybe it doesn't check any of the boxes that you thought that you had, you know? And it'll just make it all make sense why it didn't work out with this last person.
Look at you with the very good advice. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Shout out to my therapist.
This is I think what you're talking about is it's a really common thing where all of a sudden you've found your polar opposite. You were so upset that you weren't getting your need met in this way. And so you were determined to make sure that you're going to choose somebody who's going to be a really good fit and meet that need. And that could have happened in this situation with her. You know, she mentions that the sex is fine. It's good. It's adequate is the vibe that she's giving, but it's not as hot and sexy as the last person. That's a tricky thing because if you're like with an on again, off again sort of thing, and it's a roller coaster and there's a lot of toxicity, then that can just make the sex better because you're craving each other, or you don't know if you're going to ever see them again, or whether you just show up sort of differently. The time that you feel most attached to them is going to be the time that you're fucking each other, and so that's going to amplify everything. There's lots of reasons why. Like there's a lot of hotness there. So she might be comparing there's a possibility that the sex that she's having with the new person could maybe be just as good if it was just as roller coastery, if she was just as unsure. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. I have 100%, as you're talking, I feel like I'm getting therapy right now. There was a dude that I was dating that was exactly the case for, where the only time I was really ever connected to him was when we were having sex. And it made me, I was like, not in like a scary, creepy way. I was like obsessed with him, you know? I was like, I always said I was dickmatized. He got me stuck in the dick sand, you know? I was like totally like fully invested in this man only because the sex was good. Because there is that like kind of connection that you have with the person that you're attracted to that doesn't really give you any other sort of like anything to like key into outside of the sex. It really, it makes you look back on that so fondly because you put so much weight on it, when in reality, for a lot of people, for some people that might be enough, but for a lot of people that are looking for a relationship, it could not be. So yeah, I think I completely resonate with what you're saying.
So if you want, maybe like she can try to really spice things up sexually with the new guy. Maybe you can be a bit more sexually adventurous. Maybe you can add even a little bit more novelty, sort of like have sex, do sexy things, maybe a little outside your comfort zone. that you're all still consenting to kind of like spice things up a little bit there. I'm thinking, sometimes with this ex or any other ex that we've had in our past, I think that a lot of times we just want to like scrub that memory or scrub those emotions away so that we never feel them again. And I get that she wants to let go. She doesn't want to think about this person anymore. It's kind of fucking with her. But I'm also like, maybe just allow it to be there for a little while longer. It's been 6 months. I know that a lot of us feel like we should totally be over something after 6 months. That's not always the case. So can you think fondly? Can you have like a little nostalgia? Know that you're not going to get back in contact with him, but that sometimes it takes a little bit more time for the memory to fade away or for that urge to fade away, especially if there was a really sexy connection. The other thing is that there's a possibility that you haven't fully grieved, that you haven't fully let go. So there might be yet another layer of grief that you have to go through, because there might be a part of you that's just like, well, maybe we'll end up together again, or maybe somehow we'll cross paths, or I'm not going to make it with this guy, and so somehow I'm going to go back to the last guy. There's just like, you haven't really, really let go. And sometimes we don't do that final stage of grieving because we still just want to be connected. Even if it's in a way that's not serving us, we still want to be connected. So there's also a possibility that you just have to let the fuck go. Really make that deliberate decision. You're never going to get back together. You're never going to see him again. Whatever you need to do in order to move forward. You know what I mean?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. That last connection and not wanting to like, stop grieving the relationship because it's your like last connection to them is such a real thing. Something my therapist would always say to me too. I feel like I'm just like a poster child for my therapist this episode. I swear I'm not just going to talk about her the whole time. But something she told me a lot when I was getting over my breakup was like, this person is always going to be a part of your painting of your life. But as you live, more painting happens around it and they become a smaller and smaller piece of the painting. Like, of course, your most recent thing is in your mind a big piece of your painting because you haven't done a whole lot of painting around it. I think putting a lot of pressure or like a lot of importance on it too, and like getting in your head about like, why can't I drop this, gives it a lot of power too. And that's not to say like you shouldn't, or it's just like, just don't. I hate when people say that. Just like, have you thought about just not feeling that way? But it's true, it's like we ruminate on these things and they turn into these like big smudges on your painting for a time being, but you can still paint around it. And as time goes on, it just gets easier. It just does.
Yeah. Really great points. You're really fucking good at this, Amelia.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, and there's also I can remember feeling the way that you're feeling, caller, where I'm looking back at my most recent ex being like, oh my god, it was so hot, it was so sexy, I can't stop thinking about them. Sometimes they pop into my head while I'm doing sex with my new person. And now I look back on those 5 sexy girlfriends that I've had, and I'm just like, oh, that was cute. That was fun. That was really hot. And there's just sort of there's not a lot of charge to those memories, but I can still acknowledge that we had really hot sex and it was a really bad fit. And that's it. You know what I mean? So basically what you're saying, you're going to paint around this. Time will move forward. It's not going to be as powerful as it is today.
Yes.
Yeah. Problem solved. Andrea, let's go to question number 2.
Hi, Jeff. Longtime fan since Swoon and absolutely loving this new iteration of your podcasts. I feel like I'm in a bit of a pickle and I'd love your advice. So I have gotten myself into a situationship with a 35-year-old man and I am 23. We met organically at a dating event. We didn't know each other's ages, so nothing creepy. And it really hasn't been an issue for us. However, cons, he is extremely conflict avoidant. The times, it's been like 3 months, but the times that I've tried to voice things as they come up for me, such as, hey, you often leave my place messier than when you came. Do you think you could pick up more? Or I might say, when you tell me, we'll talk about it later, when I ask you about things that would help me to know you deeper, like politics or your romantic history. I know you don't want to ruin the mood, but it actually kind of frustrates me that you aren't more forthcoming. When I say these things, he kind of shuts down. and never raises his voice, but I can tell he feels combative and doesn't seem comfortable with hard conversations. Con number 2, he has a small penis, which could be fine. He's usually good at sex, but sometimes it just doesn't really get me there because of that. And he doesn't eat me out. And it makes me wonder, like, do I need to feel self-conscious about this? Is this something I should be worried about? And I've mentioned it to him, and he just acknowledged it and then didn't really change anything. Strange, right? However, pros, he also makes me feel very taken care of and looked after. He knows how to make things better. If he cancels plans, he always immediately reschedules because he knows that getting canceled on makes me anxious. He's really good at taking initiative with planning dates in general. And honestly, he's also just really hot. Like, he speaks multiple languages. He's an immigrant. He has these big, juicy brown eyes and lashes that look like a pony. But I don't know. I know that at this point in his life, at some point in the near future, he would like to get married, and he's thinking more seriously about dating. And I would love to be in a relationship with him. But I have these reservations. The conflict avoidance is really a big red flag for me, right? And while I could date him, I feel like I have a bit of a moral responsibility to maybe cut it off if I know that things might not work out ahead of time because, maybe he has more to lose since he's older. I don't know. That conversation is definitely happening soon, so I would love your advice. Thanks.
Do you have any feelings about the 35 and 23 age difference?
Typically I would. Caller sounds very mature for their age.
Totally.
I don't think I was saying conflict avoidance when I was 23, and not to say I don't want to infantilize you 23 as an adult, but you sound very mature. Yeah. Typically I would say yes, but I do think that there are some instances where no. It's tough when you think what does a 23-year-old and a 35-year-old have in common? I think that's a big question mark that I usually have when I see these age gaps in relationships, but every situation's different. I try not to be too judgy. He's not 60. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like I don't judge an age gap until I do. I want to be the guy that doesn't do that. And 23 and 23 and 35, there's something that happens to me when I hear about that, but it sounds like she's actually presenting as the emotionally more developed one, compared to his 35. Yeah. And it sounds like she's starting to see him pretty clearly just after 3 months that he has some, he's avoidant with conflict, and he doesn't open up about certain things about who he is so that she can know him better. And I don't know, 3 months is not that long, but these are pretty big red flags. Wouldn't you say?
I would agree. I do think that there are some aspects of this too that I think more context would be helpful in terms of where is he from? Because culturally, he might not be, because he's an immigrant. So culturally, he might not be, he hasn't had space to share his emotions or share how he feels. So he might just be very, very good at patting it down at this age, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks, But I do think that there's that aspect of it, of just understanding, not to say that she's not understanding, but just from our advice perspective, is this coming from a place that's deep rooted in him, or is it just that he just doesn't want to have these conversations?
That's a really good point. And if he just doesn't want to have these conversations, then maybe he can push himself and compromise and have some of these conversations. If this is part of his personality or doesn't value these types of conversations, or culturally he's been conditioned to sort of operate in a different way relationally, and we don't even have to judge it, he's just showing up in a different way, then it might not change. And this is sort of something that she's going to have to learn how to accept instead of ask for him to evolve on the issue or grow or change or whatever. So that's a great question for her that she needs to think about. The the small penis and then the not going down on her part. I mean, we're not like judging. There's nothing we can do about small penises, right? Like the penis is going to be, it's the size it's going to be. But
Right.
you can maybe also take that into consideration that if she's not getting pleased by your penis, then there's plenty of other ways to please her. And if he's
Yeah.
not willing to go down on her and please her that way, then that's maybe not great either.
Right. Yeah. It's, it's not the size of the boat, it's the motion of the ocean, is what they say. It does feel like, if he's not, because it sounds like she's like very good at communicating with him what she needs or wants from him. So if he's not willing to be a team player, that's a big thing. I also think like introducing like toys to the bedroom too is like a good way around that. I know some men have an insecurity about that. Like, what am I not good enough? But
Right.
if he's not doing what you've asked him to do for whatever reason, maybe he's like uncomfortable with it or just like isn't into that, whatever, you still have to figure out ways to take care of yourself. And it would be unfair for him to make you feel bad about that, because sex it sounds like it's important in this relationship. It's important in a lot of relationships. And I think wanting to just like introduce like a little like bullet vibrator into the mix is not like, too like scary of an ask for most people.
Right. Yeah. And if she said, I think that she kind of expressed how it's making her doubt herself or affect her self-worth or something, kind of like examine herself like she's the problem or something, then it sounds like he didn't really make her feel better about that or reassure her that's not the case. So it seems like there might be somewhat of a pattern where he's just not willing to open up or grow in different situations. There's also like, if you're gonna be, it's okay if you're a size queen. Like if you're like, I need a dick to be this big, then you need a dick to be that big and go for it, babe. We're not judging you for having that preference.
Right.
Although I love that she called him like a little pony. That I've never heard anyone call anyone that before, and that's fucking adorable.
Yeah. No, I agree. There is something that my boyfriend and I have started doing that I think would be maybe helpful for her is every Sunday we have a State of the Union where we sit down and make time to just like discuss how everything's going, because it can be difficult to bring things up that are bugging you, and it can be difficult to receive it when you're not expecting it or you're not in the headspace to receive it. And so on Sundays we sit down and we're like, we check in. It's like, oh, you did this thing that like made me feel this way, like, and we'll just talk through it. And that way we have like assigned space for those conversations. I do think too, like asking him maybe how he prefers to like receive feedback, I guess, like this is a job, but you know what I mean? Like how he prefers to like hear your concerns, and trying to like shape it to fit him too, if he's not willing to bend and you care enough to like, give it a try. I think too, that would be like a good place to start with it.
Yes. Really good advice. Yeah. A state of the relationship talk, if you can schedule that weekly, you're fucking killing it. That is such a huge green flag. And it does put you in this like mind frame of being open and being curious and engaging in compassion and all of that. I know that sometimes people can do that and then they can start to like create a lot of anxiety. Oh, Sunday's here. And is this just a scheduled fight that we're having? And if it feels like it's starting to be a scheduled fight, then you're probably doing it wrong. Yeah. So think about that and try to shift the energy and the dynamics there. The intention is to feel really connected at the end, feel like you have even more information in order to grow as a partner and be better for each other, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good idea. I mean, I also like that she said at the end there that maybe, if he's 35 and he's looking for his long-term person, if that's what he wants, and she feels like she's not going to be that person, then yeah, and ethically go ahead and step aside so that he can find somebody who would love all of those things or not care about some of these flaws that you're mentioning.
Absolutely. Agreed.
And yeah, I don't know. I feel like the energy that she gave off is like, wow, she is very emotionally intelligent and deserves to have that same sort of energy reflected from her partner.
For sure. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah. Okay. Next question, Andrea.
Hi, Therapy Jeff. Love your podcast. Love your TikTok. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about limerence, especially in the context of a monogamous relationship. I have been with my partner for 9 years and married for 6 years. And during the last year and change, I developed a strong attraction to a friend of mine who I met through work. I, at no point, felt like I was at risk of cheating on my partner. I didn't even want to leave my partner at any point. I was really conscious of, like, this isn't about my actual friend. Like, this is about something within me that needs attention. And I unpacked it with my therapist. I feel like I gained a lot of useful insights about myself, about parts of myself I wanted to be more connected with, things in my relationship that I was missing. I also didn't disclose these feelings to my partner or to my friend. So I'm finally at a point where I feel like I'm not feeling that attraction anymore. I feel like I'm kind of back to my life, back to my relationship. But I feel like I am left with these feelings of guilt. I do think that even though I didn't cheat or cross a line, I did allow myself to kind of disappear into fantasy sometimes, and was maybe less present for my current relationship. So I'm just kind of struggling with that, and I want to really consciously move back towards my partner and develop more intimacy there. But I also really would like to not tell them about this attraction. One, because I know it would come as a betrayal, and just the not having been honest with him about it as it was happening. And two, because my partner has been in several relationships where he has been cheated on, and I am just feeling really protective of his feelings and that vulnerability, to feeling like his partner is not committed to him, which I am and always have been. But yeah, I'm just trying to unpack, like, what do I do with these feelings of guilt? Do I need to feel guilty? Any insights you have, I would really appreciate. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much for all that you do.
First off, I love that she was able to be like, oh, I'm having some of these feelings, some fantasies, limerence, whatever she wants to call it, for this friend. And that's making me curious about maybe what I'm missing in my current relationship. And she talked about that with her therapist, and she was able to unpack that and be like, because that's typically a lot of the times that's what's happening, is that if you're in a relationship and you start having feelings for somebody else, it might be because there's this part of you that's being expressed in that relationship with the other person. So I feel like the person's laughing at all my jokes. I feel like I'm being taken really seriously. The person that I have a crush on is my professor, and there's this real like caretaking vibes, or they really respect me. And those are that's really good information to know, so that you can go back into your relationship and be like, oh, I want to be able to build on that. And you can have discussions about it, or you can show up in your current relationship in that sort of way that you're showing up in this other relationship. It's just really, really good info. I think that a lot of people start to feel like, oh, I'm showing up in this relationship with this friend in a different way. I must be in love. And they like quickly jump into that. So this is just 10 out of 10 emotional intelligence. I love how she handled it. She didn't make her friend feel weird. She didn't make her partner feel weird. This is something that she privately discussed with her therapist. She handled it so well. Do you feel the same way?
100%. Yeah. 10s across the board. I completely agree. I think is really difficult when you're in the position that she was in to actually recognize, like what you're saying, that like the crush is a symptom rather than like it's, I mean, it can feel like its own thing, but it really is the symptom of something potentially missing in your relationship. I've been in this position in the past. And it took me a long time to realize what she's already realized and has worked through. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. That's a really good look. I also, she can't go back in time. And I'm interested in what you think about this. If you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, you can disagree with me. That's fine. I will cancel you later, like on TikTok, in public, But I usually encourage folks to have a conversation right after they define the relationship. And like in that conversation, I want you to ask each other, what is cheating and what information should be kept private? What are things that you want to know and that you don't want to know? Because I have a whole list of things that I want to tell my partner to keep private or to let me know, or what cheating is, so we can all kind of get on the same page. And if they would have had that conversation before, then she'd have a blueprint about how to handle these conversations or avoid these conversations. How do you feel about that kind of conversation of what is cheating and what should be held private from each other?
I mean, I'm always erring on the side of like over communicating when you're like setting, boundaries for a relationship, taking the guesswork out of it. I think too, and maybe this is like a whole separate thought from what you're saying, but in my mind, it ties in. I think a lot of what happens in these situations is like shame and guilt are such loud emotions, and feeling like you fucked up am I allowed to curse? I haven't cursed yet on this podcast.
Yeah, no, go
okay,
ahead.
Cool. Feeling like you fucked up and like went behind your partner's back to do this, to have this like rendezvous, even though you hadn't even touched the person. Like that guilt and shame gets so loud and it turns into this like monster in itself. And so like, I just feel like forgiving yourself for something that's already, in the past and has happened, and like holding that and like taking care of that emotion and then letting it go and identifying it for what it is too, which is shame at the end of the day, and letting it go is a big piece, because like right now you're dealing with this alone. Like you're holding this alone and you're not doing yourself any favors. It's in the past, and it's like your guilt and shame isn't allowing it to be in the past. So I just feel like identifying when you get into a relationship, you like your libido or like your attraction to other people doesn't just like fade away. Like you're always going to feel a draw to other people. It's whether or not you do something about it, or like you like, if you feel attracted to someone, just being like, oh, I need to keep like a little bit of a distance from that person because like I don't want to get myself into a headspace where I feel bad about it later. I think we can all learn from those situations, and again, just forgiving yourself for feeling the way that you were feeling, especially because you didn't act on it.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. And there's probably a good chance that the shame and the guilt that you're feeling is fueled by like toxic monogamy culture, or the church, or some old fucking bullshit beliefs that have been passed down by, Puritans. I don't know, whatever. And if you like, I'm not saying that monogamy is toxic, but there is a toxic monogamy like messaging that gets passed down, that if you're in a monogamous relationship, then all of your love and energy and attraction and adoration needs to go to your person. And like Amelia is saying, I don't believe that that is like actually realistic, especially being in a relationship for 9 years. There's gonna be somebody else that kind of catches your eye. Whenever I say that though, especially on a TikTok, there's so many comments from so many people being like, but when I'm in love, I don't see anybody and it's only my person. Fine. That's great. Whatever the fuck. Then there's exceptions to the rule. I don't think that's common though. But if that's your experience, then I'm not going to like, invalidate it. There's also, two things. Are you wanting to tell him so you can relieve your guilt? because that's a little selfish, maybe. I'm not sure if that's what's going on here. But if that's the main reason, just be like, oh, I did this so that you can feel less guilty. But now he has the burden of knowing this information that is now going to fuck with him for a long time or forever. Ugh, not the best reason to do it. And also, a lot of times, you know, if we're in the situation of should I tell this person or not, I'm usually like, well, has your behavior changed? Are you treating them poorly? Are they like, what's going on, babe? And you're like, nothing. Like, can they tell that there's been a behavioral difference or an energetic shift? And if so, are they asking for the reason? If so, maybe you say something. But it sounds like maybe he'd never even noticed. And revealing this information, like the caller said, would only hurt him. So it feels like she's doing a service for the relationship and making sure that he feels good and that it's a good long-term fit and yada, yada. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I completely agree. It does feel like it would be just an energy release for her. And, you know, that energy would then be dumped onto him, like you're saying. It gets complicated with his history too. I mean, regardless of whether or not he had been cheated on in the past as much as he had been, like, it does complicate things knowing that he has this history, because I'm sure that that's contributing to the guilt. Like, oh, I'm doing what everybody else did to him. Like, this person that you love so much and like you never thought that you would do anything to, like, I'm doing it. Like, I'm into somebody else, but you didn't. Like, you didn't act on it. Like, you had feelings for someone else. Nothing telling him is not going to contribute to his life or your life in any way outside of you just like having the weight off of your shoulders when it's not really necessary. Like, I can only speak for myself. I don't think I would want to know. Like, if my partner had like an emotional connection to someone but didn't do anything about it and nothing got weird or like fishy or sneaky with it and it was in the past, my life is so much better for not knowing.
Yeah, totally.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, I never want to know about that shit. Unless you're like thinking about breaking up with me or unless you're being a fucking weirdo about it, you know, like, but if you can handle it on your own and process it, love that for you. Love that for us.
That's your thing, babe. You hold that.
Exactly. We got time for one more question, about like 5 minutes left. Andrea, go ahead and play us the next question.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I want to be a fuckboy. Basically, I want to have that detached sensibility when it comes to casual relationships. And sometimes I can, when I don't really like the person or the sex that much. It's just okay. I'm good at being detached. But when I really like the sex, especially, and sometimes just the person, I just want more of it. And I don't really want a relationship, say, or a boyfriend, or I'm not on that track where I'm wanting monogamy and cohabitation and partnership. I've done all that. I'm divorced. I'm not doing that again. I have my life. I have my children. I have my friends. So the idea of having lovers and kind of casual relationships is really exciting to me. But I'm finding that when I really like the sex and like the person, I just want more of it, and it becomes stressful. So yeah, I want to know, how do I fuck like a fuck boy? Thanks for answering my question.
It's the $1 million question.
How do you fuck like a fuck boy?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish I could ask follow-up questions, because I'm wondering, like, is she saying that she gets attached to these guys that she really likes and has good sex with, or does she just want to keep like fucking them in a casual way? Just keep fucking them in a casual, just let them know, I want to fuck once a week or I want to fuck twice a week. Like, and see if they're up for it. But I get the feeling that she's saying that there's like some emotional attachment. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think the question is?
I mean, that would make a lot of sense because I was going to say, like, I had sex with a lot of fuckboys that I had sex with more than once. Like, the issue isn't like one and done, you know? Like, you can be a fuckboy and have multiple partners that you have sex with a lot, you know? So it must be the connection piece of it. That is how I understood it, unless she just wants, you know, a bunch of one night stands. And in that case, that's, you know, a whole different problem.
Yeah, because it sounds like she's pretty good at getting it, and she can do it, and she can, you know, one of the things about being somebody who, it sounds like how she's asking, how do I have sex with people without getting attached or emotionally attached or wanting even more than I can actually get? The problem there is that when you do have sex with somebody that you really like, oftentimes there's this chemical that goes off. It's called oxytocin. It's the attachment chemical. It's the same chemical that a baby experiences when they're breastfeeding. Like it's the thing that makes us really fall for someone. And especially if you're having orgasms with somebody, especially if you're really into that person, the oxytocin is going to burst. And you're going to feel all these warm feelings and want to start seeing them again. Fuck boys maybe just sort of suppress that or don't identify with it or sublimate it into something else, where they sort of, you know, if they feel like they're getting all these attachment feelings, then they're just gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna fucking play football or something. There's like, they kind of they release that energy in some sort of way. They have like, maybe, I'm not going to say that fuckboys have a lower emotional quotient, but if they did, that's helpful, so that they don't get hooked on to anybody. So there's that. You're going to have to maybe try to figure out how to tolerate that feeling. You can feel warm and fuzzy. You can have a good time experiencing it. And then you understand that you've made an agreement with yourself that you're not going to get into anything serious because you really love your life right now. You're going to spend time with friends. You're going to distract yourself. You're going to wait 2 weeks instead to see that person instead of 2 days to see that person. The oxytocin, the chemical that reacts in your brain, it doesn't just last forever. It comes up and then it goes away. And within like a few days, you're not going to be feeling the oxytocin anymore. Within at least a week, it'll probably like totally leave your system. So for all the guys that you love to fuck and you're feeling an emotional attachment, really spread those people out, so that you're not just like constantly reinforcing the oxytocin that's going off in your brain. Or don't fuck those guys, which might suck because that sounds like the good sex that you're having, but maybe steer clear. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I would agree. I realized because I had a fuckboy phase when I was out of my 8-year relationship. I, you know, hit the ground running with dating, and I was the one that was kind of hurting people. Like, I was leaving some people in the wake, even though I was communicating up front. You know, I was like, I don't want a relationship. But I feel like something happens where even though you say that, there's always some people that are like, but does she mean it? Like, I can change her, you know? But it came to a point with my fuckboy phase where I started to feel myself shifting in how I was thinking about dating. And like, I would get really attached to people, or like the sex would feel even more like vapid than before. And it was like, why is this not like serving my needs anymore? So I bring this up to say, like, I'm wondering if like that could also be what's going on. Like, maybe you might just be somebody that like isn't able to like be a fuckboy, which is like, which sucks because it sounds like that's what you want, but like, it is also not a bad thing. Like, I think that there is like some in-betweens of like a fuckboy and like monogamous that like you can kind of like fill in, take from both buckets and figure out an arrangement that makes sense for you. And that might be having multiple fuck buddies that you see, you know, you have like on a rotation, the bench, the stable, you know, you can like rotate these people in and just like make it work for you. Because I do think that there are like flavors of fuckboy that we just don't hear enough about in like, you know, the media or like pop culture, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Really good point. Yeah, I went through a real fuckboy phase after my divorce 5 years ago, and I too was no good at it. I was upfront about what I wanted and what I didn't want, and we would have sex, and then right after we'd have sex, I'd be like, "Tell me about all your trauma. What are your hopes and dreams?" You know, and it would just
Yes.
be like, that's the only way I know how to connect is like these deep emotional connections. And then they
Right.
would get this idea that I want more, and of course they would fucking get that idea that I wanted more, because I'm not just like keeping it casual or being really friendly and that's it, or like leaving and not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's, I was verbally telling them what I want, but behaviorally and like emotionally showing it in really different ways. And that was very confusing to everybody, including me.
Yeah.
And
Right.
people got hurt because of it. And we all learned lessons, I hope. I think you're such a wonderful guest. You warned me before this, being like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to give the best advice, but you gave amazing advice. I love this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you remind everybody where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on every platform at Amelia Samson, all one word. There's no P in Samson, common misconception. It's just Samson. And my podcast is called The Holy Hour, HOE, like ho, because it's a sex podcast.
See what you did
So
there.
that's where you can find me. I really appreciate you having me on, Jeff. Thank you so much for asking me on.
Yeah. It's been, I've watched your content for so long, the whole time I've been on TikTok. So it was really a pleasure for me and for you, for us to talk to each other.
I love it. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
Cool. Yeah, we're going to link to all of your things in the show notes, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Problems. Okay.